What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And a few weeks ago, the New York Giants made the trade to send Leonard Williams to the Seattle Seahawks for a second and a fifth-round pick in return. We praised the trade, we loved it, and now we've gotten even more information about the trade, the way it went down, and the handling of it from Joe Schoen and the New York Giants front office. And this will get you really excited if you're a Giants fan. This will make you proud that Joe Schoen is the GM of the Giants. This will make you feel good. I know there's not a lot to feel good about with the New York Giants right now, but we can feel good about that extra second round pick, and we can definitely feel good about our GM handling the situation as a true world-class professional. A lot of class here, a lot of respect given to Leonard Williams and his camp from Joe Schoen. So we're going to go ahead, dive into the details, and kind of discuss what this means for the New York Giants as they approach this upcoming offseason, maybe trying to attract free agents, maybe trying to bring Leonard Williams back, which is something I want to dive into, and really just the overall vibe of the Giants, the culture there, and the front office and all of that good stuff. So before we dive into all that, make sure you leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what is your reaction to the news that we've gotten about this Leonard Williams trade?
Well, my friends, I'm doing pretty well. I hope you guys are doing the same. Giants, obviously, in the land of demise. We have another couple players expected to miss this week: Adoree Jackson, Evan Neal, and Mark Lewinsky. So once again, the offensive line is going to be damaged goods. Last week, we saw a little bit of progress, but ultimately, Tommy DeVito, undrafted out of Illinois. What can you expect of the kid? He's putting his best out there, but he's holding on to the ball really long, and obviously sacks are going to come with that. But I will say this. The front office of the Giants, and this is something that we've been pretty vocal about, Anthony, over the past couple of days, is that I still have plenty of faith in Joe Schoen to get this thing turned around, mainly because you have to keep in mind that he was strapped with so many bad contracts going into his tenure. This is only the second year. Obviously, the contract with Daniel Jones hasn't necessarily panned out, and we may be looking to move on from that, but the circumstances at hand were really difficult to manage. So moving forward, and guys, I want to throw one little piece of information that I did kind of figure out over the past couple of days regarding the Daniel Jones contract. So you guys know that when I broke this down a couple days ago, $22 million dead cap hit if they release him in 2024 after that season. They can take that $22 million cap hit and spread it over the next 2 years of his contract, right? So they don't actually have to keep that $22 million cap hit unless they want to take it all on and then get rid of it. They can actually separate that into two different payments and keep the cap hit lower, so they can open up about $11 million in salary space in 2025 if they want to, which could go a long way towards signing a new player if they want to compete. You know, they have another quarterback in tow. You know, we'll see how things go. But the front office here, and you know, you mentioned it, Leonard Williams, this whole situation that unfolded, I believe the New York Post, Paul Schwartz reported that basically the way that the front office dealt with Leonard Williams and his trade was something to be very respected. You know, it was a very unique situation because they essentially told Leonard Williams, hey, we want to trade you. Like, this is what we have on the table, but we're not going to trade you if you don't want to be traded. We're going to give you the chance to veto this deal. So essentially, it actually worked out really well because the Giants, they look like the good guy, and they got the draft capital because they probably figured themselves, look, we're 2-7. Leonard Williams has never been on a winning team. At least, you know, last season was a mirage. So you're looking at what he can do now to put himself in a spot where he can actually make an impact on a winning club. So Seattle Seahawks enter the play, and he's like, okay, you know what? This is a good chance for me as a veteran. I'm getting older. The twilight of my career is right in front of me. I'm, going to be a free agent after the season anyway. I can go sign anywhere I want. Maybe I even come back to the Giants on a cheaper deal. You know, I can use this season to go and actually try to achieve some of the goals I have for myself, which is, winning football games. And he basically said, I'm going to actually do this solid for you guys and for myself. Go win some football games. They're 5-3 right now, and I'm gonna get you guys that second round pick and fifth round pick. So, who's to say he doesn't come back? Like, imagine the deal like that Joe Schoen would have made if Leonard Williams comes back to the Giants, signs a team friendly deal to come back and play with Dexter Lawrence, and we got the second round pick out of it, and we're losing anyway. Like, we're not making the playoffs, like, objectively. So just think about how ridiculous that trade would look in full circle if that were to happen, which honestly is not outside of the realm of possibility, in my opinion. So, looking at what the Giants got, I mean, that second round pick, maybe it's in the 60, late 50s range. You could leverage that into trading up for a quarterback. You could leverage that into trading into the first round with your current second round pick and grabbing the best player available, getting that fifth year option for a first round talent. there's a lot you can do there. But I think that the respect that the front office kind of showed by giving Leonard Williams, who's a vested veteran, the opportunity to say, you know what, I want to stay where I am. I think that goes a long way towards building a culture that we're proud of here. And I think the Giants have gone away from that in recent years. Dave Gettleman was so brass, like he's such a brash kind of GM in the way he operated. It was just like, didn't tell you were gone, or like, screw you, you're done, or, you know, we're this, we're that. Like, you know, how many stories have you heard? Josh Norman, Jonathan Stewart, people have called him a snake. You know what I mean? No one's ever said that about Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen comes from a front office over there with Buffalo that does things the right way. And I think that respect, when you're going into a free agency next year, Anthony, and you're a 2-7 team right now, and players are looking at you saying that team kind of blows, but you know that their front office takes care of you, and that front office cares, and that front office will treat you like a human being. Maybe you're willing to sacrifice and bet on the upside because of that front office. Those little variables, those little differences can sometimes be the difference between winning and losing games, or rather signing players and not signing players. Do I like that GM? Do I like that head coach? Do I like the way they operate? Do I feel respected? Do I feel like, yes, it's a business, but they're not going to sidewind, like, screw me? You know what I mean? I think that goes a long way sometimes toward convincing players to come and play for you. And for what it's worth, Bobby Okereke came out and said exactly that. He was like, this front office is respected. I respect them. I came here for a reason. These guys do it the right way. And that's a captain right there saying that. You know what I mean? That's a guy who came here in free agency. Despite the fact the team's losing, he respects them still. So, Anthony, you tell me. Like, I feel like I gained a lot of respect for the Giants for doing that. Some people will argue Leonard Williams is an old-ass player. Get rid of him. You know, we needed to trade him. And yes, I agree that we needed to trade him. It was the right move objectively, but it was a win-win because the Giants knew he was going to want to go play somewhere else, and they gave him that opportunity to veto it, and they got the draft capital. So it ended up working out perfectly for us. Really helps the front office image, and we get the draft capital. So, you know, to me, I think it was a win-win. Some people may disagree with that.
No, I would find that hard to disagree with that. It's definitely a win-win. Leonard Williams is playing for a winning football team right now, has a really good chance to go back to the postseason now with the Seattle Seahawks. A little fun fact about that, I don't know if anybody's really realized this. It's not like anything super rare to realize, but this is the first time in Leonard Williams' career that he's not playing in New York. I think that's fascinating, right? Because he went from Jets to Giants. The entire time that he's been in the league, he's only ever played in MetLife Stadium as his home team, and now he's all the way over in Seattle. I just think that's fascinating. But good for him. Like, he's on a winning team, and the Giants got a second and a fifth round pick in exchange for him. Like, the Giants are better suited for the future. We did that whole breakdown a couple weeks ago when the trade happened. What can the Giants do with all this added draft capital? They can go get their QB of the future. They can go get a stud in the second round if they want to. They could trade it for a superstar wide receiver, or maybe for a starting caliber offensive lineman somewhere else. This gave the Giants loads of flexibility going into this offseason, and it's really, really valuable draft capital that they obtained here. But they did it the right way. They did it probably in the most impressive way that we've ever seen. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard of a team giving a player an opportunity to veto a trade. That doesn't happen. That's extremely rare. Not only that, we're hearing from Leonard Williams' agent. That's where these quotes are coming from. That's where all this information is coming from. Leonard Williams' agent, following the trade, felt so compelled to come out and praise the Giants front office because of the way that they handled the situation. The Giants knew that Leonard Williams didn't want to be traded, didn't want to be split up from Dexter Lawrence, so they gave him a choice. They gave him an opportunity to make a choice, and that's extremely rare and something that, yeah, you have to respect on the part of Joe Schoen, the fact that he even did that. Now, you could say, if Leonard Williams would have vetoed the trade and then this news got out, it would have been a big what-if scenario. We probably would have had a lot of criticism for Joe Schoen, but I don't know. I just think that this was the most respectful way to go about it. And hearing an agent come out and praise Joe Schoen, you think that Leonard Williams is the only player that this agent represents? Absolutely not. Leonard Williams' agent definitely represents other NFL players, so when they reach out to the agent and say, hey, I'm thinking of going somewhere else in free agency this offseason, or I want to trade out of where I am right now, where are some top landing spots? He's going to say, well, I loved Joe Schoen and the way that the Giants front office handled the Leonard Williams trade. You should check them out. That's automatically just bringing more attention to the New York Giants in a positive light from Leonard Williams' agent connected with other players, from Leonard Williams' agent connected with other agents who are connected to other players. This does a lot for the Giants in their future. Like, this kind of praise from an agent, a well-respected agent representing a top defensive lineman in the NFL, this does a lot for the New York Giants' image and for their ability to sign other players in the offseason. I mean, take a look at what just happened in Las Vegas. Who wanted to go play for the freaking Raiders this offseason? Nobody. They didn't really get a whole lot of players. Yeah, they got Jacoby Myers, top receiver on the class, whatever, but that all just fell apart. Players hated playing in Las Vegas. That's why they fired their GM midseason. That's why they fired their head coach and their offensive coordinator midseason. That's not going to happen to the New York Giants. The way that they're perceived around the league is still in a very high light despite the losing season that the Giants are having. So you've got to have confidence right now as a Giants fan in Joe Schoen, his ability to operate, the way he treats players as people, the way that he runs this football team with class. This is the Giants way. Like we always talk about, we want to see the Giants return to the Giants way. Of course, that means winning, and we're not just there yet. But we are returning to the Giants way in the terms of the way that the business is being handled from the front office. And that's something you have to appreciate right now. It's tough to find these silver linings when the Giants are 2-7. We're looking at the draft in November already. Like, all of that sucks. But when you're finding these silver linings, there's a massive glaring silver lining in that front office. It's the way that Joe Schoen is handling things. Giving a player an opportunity to veto a trade, it's unheard of. Having an agent come out midseason and praise another team's GM, also unheard of. But really, it puts the Giants in such a good light, and it makes you say, wow, they are running things the right way. Joe Schoen is the guy for the job, and I like the comparisons you made between Joe Schoen and Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman never got praise from players who left the team. He got criticism from players who left the team. We never heard this kind of great praise and this enthusiasm surrounding the New York Giants when Dave Gettleman was running this team, but now we're getting mid-season an agent had to come out on record and just say, I was so blown away in a good way how the Giants handled the situation. That's the exact quote. We blew an agent away, that Joe Schoen did, and I think that's awesome stuff. So I feel really confident in Joe Schoen going into this offseason, and like I said, it does a lot for them in terms of trying to acquire talent in the offseason. Different agents talk to different agents. They talk to different players. This is definitely a situation where this agent's going to say, go check out the New York Giants. I love the way that they handle things and the way that they treat their players. And again, as you mentioned and I alluded to earlier, Alex, this leaves the door wide open for Leonard Williams to return to the Giants in the offseason, right? I mean, number one thing that you do in any relationship, life advice. I can't give any of you much of that because I'm pretty young and you're all older than me, according to the YouTube viewership on this channel. But life advice would be don't burn bridges, right? Leonard Williams here, that's a bridge unburnt. Leonard Williams might want to return to the New York Giants now because of the way that they handled the situation. So Joe Schoen didn't burn any bridges. I mean, listen, we've heard about Dave Gettleman burning bridges in the past. Odell Beckham Jr., that bridge was burnt. It was demolished. It was thrown into the equator. Like, it was terrible what he did in that Odell Beckham Jr. situation. He got so much criticism from Beckham, from other players as well. Landon Collins also referred to that as a burnt bridge. He came back when Joe Schoen was GM. That's not a coincidence. Landon Collins was on this playoff team last year, made some big plays down the stretch. Pick 6 against the Indianapolis Colts. That bridge was burnt until Joe Schoen came in and repaired the relationship. And now you're seeing the same thing. He trades away Leonard Williams, but he doesn't burn the bridge. He doesn't, destruct this relationship. He keeps it intact, and now there is an opportunity in the future. Like we saw Landon Collins return to this team years later, I think that it could be months later, we see Leonard Williams express an interest in returning to this team. So again, Joe Schoen's ability here to treat these players as people, not as players that you just kind of trade around and do what you want with. He's treating them as people, and I think that they're going to appreciate that for what it's worth. We talked to Bobby Okereke in the offseason. As you mentioned, Alex, he said that the front office was super respectful, loved what they had there. Also said the same thing about the coaching staff. He said that Bobby Okereke said that Brian Daboll is one of the main factors that compelled him to sign with the New York Giants. So I want to extend this conversation now, Alex, not only talking about Joe Schoen, the reputation that he has around the league, but also Brian Daboll. I know that it's really tough, Giants fans. There are some who are like, okay, seats should be warm right now, like Brian Daboll's job should be in jeopardy. But honestly, guys, with everything that we hear behind the scenes, I just don't feel that way. The players still respect Brian Daboll. The players adore Joe Schoen, and I feel really confident in this duo, this GM and head coaching duo that the Giants have and are building here with Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. So I know that it's tough going right now for the Giants, 2-7, season spiraling out of control, as I say every episode. But I still do feel confident in the future of this team. If they can have another good offseason, continue to build this roster the right way. I love the culture around this New York Giants team. Like, it feels familial, right? We said that all offseason season long. We said that throughout the playoff run, and I think it still holds true. Even though this team is not playing good football right now, I still see that familial culture that really helped us buy into the Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen experience in the first place. So, Alex, how does this kind of affect your confidence? Like I said, there's Giants fans, they're not feeling as confident as they once were in this front office and in this coaching staff. But when you hear some behind the scenes stuff like this, we've talked to players like Bobby Okereke who've given glowing reviews of the front office and of the coaching staff. I imagine you are still feeling really confident in the future and the direction of this team and want to see this GM head coaching duo remain intact.
I mean, man, there's only one player that's spoken out against them so far, and it's been Xavier McKinney. He's the only one. And I don't know if you heard what Wink Martindale said this morning. He said he was upset. He was hurt by it because that's objectively false. And all the other leaders on the team said that they did not agree with what McKinney said. So, I don't know exactly what was behind McKinney's statements. I get he's frustrated. I don't blame him for being pissed off at all. But maybe it wasn't best to call out other captains or call out other, the coaching staff for things that weren't true. Like, I don't know the context behind it, but it seems like neither do they. And that's a little bit concerning. There's lack of communication there. But McKinney is certainly playing his way off of this team right now, speaking his way off of this team, playing. He's been okay. I'd say he's been average, maybe slightly above, but it's not good enough to warrant top safety money. At this point, I'm quickly going towards the boat of he's probably not going to be here because, one, I don't think the Giants want people that are going to talk against their coaches, talk against their leadership. And two, there's a reason they didn't pay him the first time. He hasn't proved that he's worthy of that type of contract anyway. So I'm curious how this goes. I don't necessarily know, but I certainly am curious to see how this all unfolds in the coming months, obviously after the season concludes. But look, when it comes to the Giants front office, I have faith in them because of a couple things, right? The first one is we've hit on some draft picks. I think JMS is going to be solid. I think Jalen Hyatt's going to be solid. I think that Kayvon Thibodeau's solid. I think that Micah McFadden was a steal. I think that Daniel Bellinger's a solid player. There are a lot of talent, like Evan Neal, obviously not great, had a decent game this past week before the injury, but still a lot left to be desired there. Deontay Banks looks solid. Trey Hawkins looks solid. Cordell Flott has looked really freaking good in the slot, guys. Like, very low-key. No one's talking about Cordell Flott. He's been excellent lately. Another guy, who Jason Pinnock, not drafted, but picked up off of the Jets practice squad or whatever it was. He's been excellent too, or at least maybe not, I would say excellent, but he's been good. So, when you're looking at this Giants team, we're getting a lot of value from our drafts. That's not even mentioning Wan'Dale Robinson either. So, when you're actually looking at this team objectively, our drafts have been pretty solid. There's a couple of really good foundational pieces that are developing here, and they're getting better. This past rookie class, I think, was excellent. I think that we actually did a really good job. So I am excited to see how this continues to grow and things seem to get better. But I will say that, there is a couple of big contracts coming off the books. Adoree Jackson, Leonard Williams. We'll see what they go with Daniel Jones after this season. There's a lot of money opening up. They're going to have about $50 million to spend. This is where it gets interesting, right, Anthony? Blending that free agent strategy and your draft strategy together to formulate a successful process, and then your scheme coming to fruition and not becoming, unreliable like we've seen. The scheme has not been reliable. The injuries, the lack of talent at some positions, it's been pretty apparent. So everything needs to blend together really well. If we have a good free agency class, and for what it's worth, like A'Shawn Robinson is solid, Raheem Ruiz-Roche is solid. Paris Campbell, obviously, it's a one-year deal. He's gone after the season, water under the bridge. Bobby Okereke has been fantastic. I think that we've done a decent job plugging some holes with the money we have had available, but we still had so much money tied up in big contracts from the Dave Gettleman era. We had to wait those out. Kenny Galladay's money's coming off the books. Dexter's coming off Leonard Williams coming off the books, and then Adoree's coming off the books. Talking about $32 million cap hit in Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, and then a $19 million cap hit for Adoree Jackson. Guys, I mean, that's a $48 million right there. $48 million freaking dollars tied up in two players. I think the Giants are going to take that money and they're going to appropriate that money a lot more efficiently than tying it up in two players that clearly are not worth that. Like, Leonard Williams is not worth a $32 million cap hit, objectively. Adoree Jackson, $19 million cap hit, not worth it, objectively. And the reason that their cap hits are so high is because we backloaded those contracts at the beginning of the deals because we were trying to pick up, just kind of cover up some bad drafting, right? we had to backload those things, and that way we could sign more free agents to supplement bad drafting. So Anthony, I'll ask you, I'll kind of send you back this for the last kind of part of this. What do you think the blend has to be, right? Like just in terms of, I think the drafting has been relatively solid. Now you have to blend it with free agency. How important is this upcoming free agency class going to be to get the Giants back on track and mixing that veteran mentality with the young prospects, young guys you're adding to this foundation?
Yeah, what I'll say is I think it's important for the Giants to be frugal in this free agency class. I don't think that this is a situation where, as you mentioned, they've got a bunch of money opening up. Like you said, they're going to enter the offseason with at least $50 million in salary cap space. I don't really want to see them eat up that entirety. Like, I don't want to see them spend the entirety of that $50 million. I think that they've been a little cap constrained in the midway portion of the season, looking for different players to sign, like Justin Pugh, but they really haven't had enough money to kind of make any significant deals, right? It's kind of been like bottom of the barrel, let's scrape it out and see what players we can add to our practice squad, but they haven't really had the money to be serious players for a guy like La'el Collins. I know that, he hasn't really been a player for anybody so far. Nobody's made the deal for him, but even still, the Giants expressed some interest, but they never realistically had the money to get that deal done in the first place. And I would like to see the Giants enter next season with a little bit more of a cushion in terms of their salary cap space, because it doesn't just indicate like they have more money to spend mid-season, but it indicates that they are taking this rebuild one step at a time, and that's what I want to see. Kind of a little bit of a shift in mentality. I know that the Giants continued rebuilding this past offseason, but they also were like, okay, we won a playoff game. Let's see if we can add a lot of talent to this roster, continue to build through the draft, but also add top-heavy talent and see if we can win more games this season. It didn't work out for one reason or another. There's a laundry list of reasons why it didn't work out, but this offseason, I'd rather see the Giants just go all in on the rebuild. I'm seeing these quotes from Victor Cruz. I like what he had to say. He said that the Giants should just rebuild this team from scratch right now, like keep your core guys, especially defensively, but he's saying like start over at quarterback, start over, get Brian Daboll, his guys on offense, and make this a true rebuild. And I agree with Victor Cruz. I think that's the way to do it. So if I'm the Giants, I wouldn't be heading into free agency like, okay, who's the top wide receiver on the market? Let's try our best to sign him. Oh, who's the best run defender? Who's the best offensive lineman? Let's try and sign them. No, you got to be frugal with your spending here. You got to be careful, and you have to build through the draft. The Giants have done a better job in recent seasons, I think, because of Joe Schoen entering this front office, of building through the draft, but I'd like to see that continue to be the priority and the main point of emphasis for this front office. So, for example, second-round draft pick wide receivers, a laundry list of them have panned out recently. There's been a lot of great second-round picks that have come from the wide receiver position and made an impact in the NFL. That additional second-round pick there, yeah, we just got a great second-round center last season, and we got a great third-round receiver who I think is going to be a quality starter for us. Now you can do that again. Go get a starting second-round guard and a starting second-round wide receiver. You can build this team through the draft with a lot of talent, just like the way that the Philadelphia Eagles have, the way that the Kansas City Chiefs have. They hit on a lot of those mid-round picks because they stockpile them, and that's what the Giants are starting to do, starting to stockpile those mid-round picks, building through the draft. So really there to wrap it up and answer your question fully, how do I want the Giants to approach this offseason? I want them to approach it carefully in terms of the way that they spend their money, not go for the top-end talent in the free agency class, build it through the draft, make that your focus, and devote all your time to scouting. If you're going for one of those top quarterbacks, if the Giants are planning on trading up for Caleb Williams or hopefully landing the first overall pick and drafting whichever quarterback they want, okay, make that your point of emphasis, make that your main priority, but also prioritize drafting players that will grow with him and succeed around him, like a good young offensive lineman to go next to him if they want to go that route, but also that's where the money spending comes in. Get some veterans who can help the kid out. If you're going with the young quarterback route, get some established NFL talent that can show him the ropes, give him some quality life lessons, some tips and tricks on how to succeed in the NFL and be a true professional and show him the way that things get done. That's where you spend the money. You don't need to spend big time on young talent in free agency to get those guys. Go get that 33-year-old offensive lineman that's going to start 17 games for you and only let up one sack in the season. Go find that guy, and if that's what you want to spend your big money on, do it. But I don't want to see the Giants make those splashy free agency signings this offseason. I like the way that they're building. I'd like to see Leonard Williams come back, though, for what it's worth. I think that would be a great story. Him having this good relationship with the Giants, getting traded away, signing back in the offseason. That would be phenomenal. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the Giants approach the rest of this season here. Of course, like I mentioned, is it going to be a quarterback? I don't know. It depends on how many wins the Giants end up picking up here, if any at all. We'll see what Tyrod Taylor can do, Tommy DeVito can do, and if Tyrod Taylor does return, if he's able to get some wins down the stretch. But overall, it is most of our attention focused on the offseason now, and I do feel really good about the position that Joe Schoen has put his team in to really finish the season on a low note and hopefully enter the offseason and reach a high note. So I'm excited for that, and that pretty much does wrap this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, we will catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.